Hello friends and welcome to the latest episode of the Noclip podcast. Danny here, just doing a little bit of housekeeping before we get into the meat and potatoes of this week's show, which is a fantastic little interview we recorded last week. Because as you are listening to this, if you're listening to this when it went up, myself and Jeremy are in Los Angeles filming a documentary on Outer Wilds, which is one of my favorite games of the year, and a game that not only has an interesting story behind its initial creation, and also its funding and everything else, but there's a lot to sort of chew on in terms of the mechanics of the game because it's so unique. So yeah, we're really excited to get down there, film that, and we'll be getting that out in the next few weeks. But while you're waiting for that, of course, we have this weekly podcast, and on this week's episode, we talk to a developer who's over from Europe, Connie Geppert, who works for Yomai, a studio out of Berlin. They released a game called Sea of Solitude earlier this year, which you may or may not have heard of. It came out during the summertime. It's available on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC through Origin, because it was actually published by EA. They don't tend to publish a lot of sort of third-party artistic games, but this certainly fell into that category. And during our interview, myself and Connie talk about not just the story of the game and the sort of themes that it tackles with mental health and loneliness, but also the relationship working with EA, like a big corporation which is sort of like generally more sales focused than perhaps they are, and the creative frictions they have there. We also talk about the challenges of creating a game with a small team and the things that she'd change about the game given a second go. And we have a nice little chat about Death Stranding at the end, which I think went some interesting places. And while I'm here, actually, I just want to say thank you so much for listening to the podcast and for being okay with the changes we've made. A big part of us moving back to the Bay Area was trying to get a place where we could invite in developers and people in the media to talk about the games they make and the work they do. And these are sort of like the initial steps on that journey. I wasn't sure if people would be super mad that we sort of changed the focus of the show, and I understand if it's not for everyone, but we seem to have retained pretty much everyone who was listening before. At least that's what the numbers would suggest. But I would love to hear feedback on what you think of the podcast and what you think about the work we're doing overall. Podcast at noclip.video if you'd like to send us your thoughts. And of course, you can always hit me up on Twitter at Danny Woodwire or official Noclip account at NoclipVideo. And also, while I'm here, just a cheeky little request: if you're listening to this on iTunes, please give us a review. That would be really, really helpful. We don't do ads on any of these, on any of the platforms we're on, so that stuff really, really helps. I'm not sure if they do reviews on Spotify and other stuff, but if they do, just give us an L thumbs up or a couple of stars. Maybe not a couple of stars, maybe a few more than a couple, if you like the show. All right, that's enough housekeeping for now. Please enjoy this interview with myself and Connie Geppert from Yomai, and in many ways their debut offering, Sea of Solitude. Hello friends and welcome to the interview section of this week's podcast, and I'm delighted to be sitting down with Connie Geppert, who has come all the way from, well, I guess you came from New York technically,
yeah,
but you've come all the way from Germany,
from
just
Berlin.
To be here with us.
Yes. Hi.
It's just a whistle stop Noclip podcast tour. You're not doing anything else. You didn't just do like a TED talk in New York or anything like that.
Good that you mentioned that, because I actually
really
did that.
Wow. How was that? How are you feeling on the other side of the of that? You must have been worried about it for months.
Okay, it was honestly, it was horrible. It was
The talk was?
So no, it was the most amazing thing I ever did.
Right, really?
Yeah. But like the months of preparation,
right?
Like the tension that is building up, that you like do the wrong thing at the end or forget stuff, or like everybody's laughing or you're fainting on stage, or
it's one take. You've got your 15 minutes and you gotta go, right?
No. You can I say fuck up?
Of course. You
can fuck up and then you can try again, but you can at some point lose like the audience if you fail too much.
Of course,
you know,
yeah.
Like that they
turn on you.
And I wanted like to everybody like really get into the mood,
right.
And so it was super exciting, super cool, super nice people, and a once in a lifetime experience.
Awesome.
And absolutely amazing.
And presumably you were there talking about your work at Yomai and Sea of Solitude,
Yomai.
Right? Yomai?
Yes.
Yomai.
Yeah.
Does it mean something?
Yes.
What does it mean?
Okay, so...
In German?
So it is German.
Okay.
So it is Bavarian because my like half Bavarian, but it's a complicated story. My co-founder Boris, he is Bavarian.
It's a very Bavarian name.
Or
a Russian name?
No,
Never say that to a German.
No. It's also Bavarian. Yomai means like whatever.
Oh, okay.
You know,
cool.
So yeah, when I became friends with him, I started to say that all the time, like, oh, you're my,
right.
you know. So we took that name.
That's fantastic. It's I'm glad to have been corrected. It's like the Mojang issue as well, where whenever you see it written down,
Mojang.
Everyone calls it one thing. So yeah, okay.
With GIF and GIF.
Yeah, I know, totally. Yeah, it's a nightmare.
It's GIF, by the way.
So I mean, let's talk about Sea of Solitude. I want to talk to you about the inspiration, obviously, behind it, because it's such a personal game. But I also want to give an opportunity for folks who listen to the podcast to maybe go play it if they haven't already as well. So we won't get too much into, I don't know. It's not exactly an experience I feel like you can spoil necessarily, but we'll sort of skirt around it. But it seems like a very personal story. The sort of the hook of loneliness seen through all these different people's perspectives or experiences. But so it seems personal, but is it autobiographical? Is it very tied to your experiences?
Just for the story of Kay, the main character itself, not for how much can I say now? Not for the other characters there that are there. That those are not my experience or from my family or something, but from other people.
Okay.
So just the story of Kay and what she is going through, what her struggles are, that is my story.
Excellent. And then those other stories, like the supporting cast of family that sort of surround her.
Yeah.
Is that from other people within the studio, or like how or was it something that you had written yourself, pulling from people you know, or?
In the core, I wrote it, yes, but I got inspired by so many people. Like of course, the studio, we are 12 people, just to mention.
Small team for that. I was very surprised to learn that when I saw the game.
Yes, yeah. I'm still surprised how we did it. Okay, we maybe all burned out, but we did it somehow. I wanted to say that when I started writing it and the team grew bigger and bigger. At the beginning, we still developed other games when I started to write Sea of Solitude. And at some point, we called us like group therapy, because I always sat with my colleague there and like told them about my issues and stories, and then they opened up and told me about their issues or issues of their family members. So this all influenced Sea of Solitude. But also like from like close people or close friends or ex-friends or whatever in my life. It got highly inspired by all kinds of people.
I want to ask about what I mean. There's a sort of a relationship that's in that game that breakdown of which is it's kind of hard to watch, I guess, hear or listen to. It's like it's quite traumatic.
Cool.
But the part the part that resonated with me personally actually was there's a sequence that sort of deals with bullying, I guess.
Yes.
I'm interested as to where you pull that from, because that actually rung quite like I was bullied a lot in primary school and into secondary school as well, and it was like quite like like it was stirring memories that I had not thought about, probably intentionally not thought about in decades maybe. But where did that sort of come from?
So it is like very common, like bullying. So there one family member, a close family member, got bullied harshly in school. Like almost half of our staff,
really,
employees, got bullied in school. One ex of mine got really bullied hard in school, and all those stories I combined to this. I never.
Right.
I don't know. I was always so energetic that nobody even dared to try. But no, I don't know what. I was lucky to have like a normal little school in my fishing village.
Yeah, where you grew.
But yes. So it's a combination of things, especially like this close family member suffered from this, and the most important part about the now I would spoil
No, go. I mean, it's early. It feels like it's early enough in the game anyway. So
yeah,
go
okay. Because the most important part in this bullying story is that those bullies are at first friends of him.
Right.
So it's a more complex story, which really often happens, where especially with boys, that they are friend groups, and when they start slowly getting into the teenager age, like slowly, then they pick like one that. Seems to be like the weakest.
Right.
Like be it just the red hair or like whatever, like a little bit too big or whatever, and then they start picking on this person, and then the former friends starting to be bullies, and this is like a long road until like the one who gets bullied really fully realizes that those are not friends anymore.
Right.
And this can be really traumatizing. And so we wanted to go deeper with every kind of loneliness we portray in the game. Like we wanted to show like a little bit more complex what's going on behind the scene. Not only bullying and the bullies are bad guys, but what really how it comes to that often.
Right. It's a very unique game in not just in terms of, I guess, probably a lot to do with thematically, but also just in the way it plays. It's there's nothing it kind of feels close to. Oddly enough, the thing that had made me feel that it was connected to, or that reminded me of a game I played before, was the Venice levels of Tomb Raider 2. Have you ever played Tomb Raider 2?
I love Tomb Raider. I'm not sure
She'd go around in a boat in these like canal levels, and sometimes
like Tomb Raider 2, like back in the days.
Oh, like PlayStation 2, 1990, whatever it was, 7 or 8. Yeah.
Yes, I loved. She was an icon for me.
Right.
Lara Croft, just to mention. So I looked up to her like back in the days when I was really small. But I don't remember the boat driving.
Yeah, for some reason, I guess maybe boat driving is not particularly common in games, but it was common in your life growing up, right? You grew up in a seaside village?
Yes, so this is like the main point. I come from a fisherman's family. My grandpa is still fisherman, and he is like 85 now, and he stands up every morning at 4 a.m., goes on his boat with his employees, and goes out onto the sea.
What do they fish?
So plötze.
Okay. Okay. That's
or aal, eel. So I don't know how to say it in English.
No
I'm so
worries.
sorry. Google plötze.
And is it sold locally, or do they, like, how big is the community? Is it a small village?
It's really small. Like I grew. It's former GDR.
Okay.
When the wall fell, like most of the fishermen didn't survive. Like how can I say it? Like the fishermen as a profession.
Right.
Like died out in GDR, like a lot after the wall fell, like many jobs. So this is why it's just a small community.
Right. That's amazing. Well, I guess the start of the project, like, where did that come from? Can you tell me a little bit about how, like, what was Yomai doing before this project? What were you doing? Like, what is your career in games, and how did you decide to make this game?
I started with 17 as a comic artist, just to mention. So I moved to Berlin 20 years ago. Yeah, now you know how old I am. As a comic artist, but I always loved games. Like, because when the wall fell, my father immediately bought me a Nintendo console, and I started playing games and loved it so much. So when the Dreamcast came out with Shenmue,
right,
where the third part is coming out, and I'm soon, and I'm freaking out because I waited so many years for the last part.
I mean, it's out in like a week or something. Isn't
yes,
it?
I cannot believe it.
That's
I was
crazy.
18 or something, I think,
right,
when I bought it, and this like made me like realize I want to go into the games industry. But in Germany there was you couldn't even imagine to become a game developer.
Right.
There was no education for it or something. So at some point, the Games Academy opened. The first academy where you could study game design. And I went there, got a scholarship, and this is how it started. And then I moved to a big company and met my co-founder back in the days. So this, like, really fast. I don't know how much you want to know. So this is how I started, and I always wanted. I soon realized that I always wanted to be my own boss,
right?
Because I couldn't stand like many decisions of my bosses back in the days. I always wanted to make or thought I could make better decisions. So, and we always wanted to make like story-driven, heartfelt, heartfelt, how it's called, like story-driven, emotional games. But back in the days, we had the idea to make in Flash, 3D Flash, like an episodic, emotional, story-driven game in browser.
Right.
So it was so innovative. It was way too innovative. Right. So we brought it to publishers, and they said like, okay, episodic, like story-driven game. What? But we love your 3D Flash engine you did. So do you want to produce free-to-play games for us? There is Diablo. What was it? Diablo 3 coming out soon, they said. Like, please make a clone, like for us. With and they offered us money to actually start the company, right, like in the right way, like the GmbH, I don't know how you call it here. Then we wavered from story-driven emotional games to free-to-play games.
That's a hard swing. That's quite different.
Yes, it was like... you're right. We needed the money, you know.
It started the company, right? Like
it made the company possible, and we tried to put as much heart as possible into these games too. And our publisher was really cool, and then at some point they offered us an endless contract. Like even if we would have not produced games at all, we would have still got money monthly. So what? It's perfect, you know. So we said yes, and this is how we got a little bit caught in the free-to-play business. So we did that for 5-6 years, and I became more and more unhappy because I tried to put deep story into it. Female main characters, like, was really like deep story and like being like scientists and doing great stuff. So at some point I got so unhappy that I thought like, okay, we wavered too much. I need to start writing like a story-driven game again, a concept, and I wanted to bring it on bigger platform. Browser is big, but like platforms I love.
Right.
So I started writing Sea of Solitude, but back in the days it was more like a Pokemon placed in a flooded city.
Okay.
This is the first time that I really tell that anybody. So it was really kind of artificial, but I tried to put like a heartfelt story into it, but I couldn't really because get to the point again where I could write really deep stories because I made for such a long time free-to-play games.
Right.
Can you imagine that?
So the muscle wasn't there anymore.
Yes.
You had to retrain yourself.
So at some point at the beginning of 2014, I got into a new relationship, which turned out to be like highly toxic. It was it turned into an emotionally abusive relationship, but during all this time, I didn't know that. It was just like a crazy ride of feelings, ups and downs, like really in love and then really lonely and So all those like struggles, emotionally, I needed to let out. So it was coincidence that I started writing a concept for a deeper game. Couldn't really make it because, like you said, the muscle wasn't there anymore. And then I fell into this abusive relationship where I felt so lonely. So this all happened, and then I sat down and wrote the concept again, and it was the first real concept of Sea of Solitude. Like really with main theme, loneliness, and with this really deep emotional parts. So this is how it all started. And when I presented it to my colleagues and said, look what I have now, like they were all sitting there like, oh my God, what is that? It's amazing. Like that is so unique. And then we started to search for publishers.
Right.
And that was like the most amazing thing because maybe I can say it now. I think I can say it now. It was not only EA that wanted to have Sea of Solitude, but also like, for example, Annapurna.
Right.
Like really a lot. Like they were like fighting over like the budget.
And at what stage? What are you presenting them at this stage? Do you have like a little proof of concept, or is it mostly a paper pitch? Or
No, we had at that point already a prototype. So we were still producing free-to-play games, but I got like one programmer who could help me. And so I was a writer, art director, creative director, and game designer.
I'm not surprised ever you wore a lot of hats, because it seems with 12 people, there's probably a lot of people wearing a lot of different hats as well.
Yes. I always thought like it's normal in these studios, but I now see that it maybe was a bit too much for everybody. Like they were so highly into it and put all their energy into it, but I see now like everybody was so exhausted after the release of the game that. Huh?
Yeah, it was incredible to see. For instance, you know, I think your lead animator is also the voice actress.
Yes, Miri. Yeah. So she is a lead animator. Yeah, she's helped also writing. And she is a voice actor, exactly. And like like everybody has, like one of my programmers also game designer, and our cutscene animator is also co-writing. And this is, you see.
The experience as well, I guess we're so used to indie games being such polished experiences these days, perhaps. But I was still taken aback by just how smooth it all was, and the animations, the camera movements,
really?
The design, all that sort of stuff. It felt like not a studio's first game, and it's not your first game, but in a way it probably feels like your first game, right? So
like real game,
right?
Not free to play.
So was there a lot of learnings that came from doing that free to play work?
Yes, the training of getting things done fast in a productive way. This we had to take care that we are totally low poly when we wanted to have this 3D Flash and browser back in 2009. Even Farmville wasn't out then. There was no 3D Flash at that point, and now it's outdated, I know. But so we needed to figure out. I love to figure out ways to do like with the minimal stuff, like the most visually appealing, graphic, for example.
Yeah.
So for this, this 5 years had been really, really amazing, but it was so. It was like a completely new thing. Like making games for console is completely different, and also like we have for the first time like testers. Like we never had that before. Like Electronic Arts had has this huge amount of testers that they're night and day for us and test all the time. And so this is like one of million things that we learned. About.
What's that relationship like then, like working with EA on something like this? Like, do they have much infrastructure that you can sort of pull from?
Yes, that is really interesting. Like talking about Electronic Arts, I always ask myself, how do I, if I ever talk to like the press or something, how do I talk about it? So there are like so many good things, and there are some things that maybe are not ideal. So all the amazing stuff is that when you work with such a senior partner who has like so much experience, we learned so much you cannot imagine. We should have paid them for get that knowledge, right? Really. So that was amazing. Also like Patrick Söderlund back in the days, he was the one who fell in love with Sea of Solitude. He was the one like in the middle of the pitch said like, stop, I don't need to hear anymore. I want to have this game. So that is like was amazing. Like seeing traveling all over the world, like here to San Francisco headquarters, and so that was amazing. There's a maybe not ideal thing is that Electronic Arts is still like very. They are more commercial driven.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? So they really tried. They really tried to support us. But we are so strangely artistic that it was hard.
Like communication-wise or goals?
At some point they feared that we are maybe too artistic.
Right, yeah.
And so I always had the last word. If I say no, then we didn't do it, but they gave advice, and I was in between, of course, confused about like what is the right way, because if you have such a, like I said, like such a big partner, they know what they are doing, but they also said like, oh, it's one of the first like autistic games we do. They gave advice how it could be maybe a little bit more commercially successful, and I needed to figure out, do I do this or not? So it was amazing working with EA, but we are very artistic, so it might be, you know, when you at some point find out like you and your partner, you like each other, but
it was a good ride.
Yeah, it was a good ride.
But we're not perfect for each other.
No,
but I enjoyed
but I like
the time.
you. You know.
Did that feel more like? Did it feel like influence, or did it feel like pressure, or was
no?
It never
No.
It wasn't like
Of course, pressure in term of I had to decide, do I take this advice? Right. But they always said, Connie, you have the last word. We just give our perspective, but we also never had been in such an extreme artistic game, so we need to figure out. But they gave advice or concerns, and what do you do like as a little indie, like having this huge EA and. Like, I don't go into detail, certain things that maybe do it different.
So I guess now that you're on this side of launch, right, do you have any things you would change, whether or not it's connected to what they had said or not, or even just your own artistic? I mean, I feel like every person who makes something, the moment that they've made it, has things they would want to change about it.
Yeah.
Given the benefit of hindsight, is there anything about the game that you'd probably, if you had another swing, you change?
Yes. One thing that was astonishing to us was like the bad feedback regarding the voice acting. Like in Germany, there was like really bad feedback about it, but all over the world a little bit too. And so. I don't think that our actors are bad, because like almost everyone except for our main character, like you said, it's my lead animator Miri who did the voice. Everyone else is professionally recorded in Pinewood Studios in London.
Oh, really?
So we thought about what is the issue, and I think it is the German accent.
Right.
So we did that on
because it's is it in English in Germany as well? Is there another voice work?
No,
there's
just
only one.
This.
Okay.
And I always wanted to show the world that we not only have this hardcore Nazi accent. I'm sorry, can I say that?
Yeah,
like
this
Autobahn Sauerkraut and things like that. But that we have a like more normal. Maybe I'm not a good example, but more normal accent. I wanted the game is playing in Berlin.
Right.
Just to mention,
it's like a beautiful cosmopolitan sort of like German accent.
Yes, exactly. And I wanted like to show to the world that we not only are this cliche movie
Gestapo,
or whatever, like, but I wanted to show the world that we can tell that we are great storytellers, like back in the days, Brothers Grimm's, that we that we have many good things to show.
Or did you want to, like, if there was a world in which the characters had, British or American accents, also then the identity of the game as it being from a German studio is lost as well?
Yes, this is what I thought. But I wanted like that everybody hears the accent, so I decided like, oh, let's do it in English, but with a German accent. Right. But I think like people felt that it sounds wrong, or like not good acting because of the accent, because we tell an emotional story, and then on top of it, the accent.
When they hear a German accent in a piece of media that's in English, it's usually for a reason that is quite stereotypical, maybe. So I wonder if in trying to subvert that, it doesn't feel right to people. It feels like slightly out of focus in their head or something.
Yes, I think exactly what you said. That they got distracted and ripped out of it, or didn't feel the emotions anymore, but just felt annoyed by like, okay, wow, what is that now? I want to immerse into this, indulge into this game, and then there is this English-German accent stuff.
Right.
But like I said, I had a good intention to bring like the normal German accent that is not extreme to the world.
Right.
But also the Germans had been angry at us that we didn't do a German version.
Right.
So everybody was angry at us about the voices. So
For one reason or another.
so this is what I would love to change if I could have the chance. Yeah.
So what's next for Yomai? What are you folks going to work on next, or are you talking about it yet, or are you free to do another solo indie project, or are the
Yes.
days of work for hire still around?
Oh God, I hope I will never do that again. Oh God, but it's like going backward. But yes, we announced it or we needed to announce it because we got government funding. It's called now Sense of Sorrow, but it's a working title. Just because I wanted to have the SOS again, but
Right.
maybe it's not the best choice. We will see. It's just a working title, and we already are in the middle of the prototyping phase and talking to publishers, and now figuring out who is the best
Right.
publisher this time, because we see that publishers have such a big influence.
It's not just a check.
It's not just no. There's this little, I told you about it. So it needs to be like people that, understand this arty stuff.
Right. It's like the relationship allegory you said before. It needs to be somebody you're on the same like wavelength with.
Yeah,
maybe.
the chemistry has to be it's not just about money.
Right.
That's money marriage.
Speaking of money, will you keep the studio size similar, do you think, or?
So yes, maybe 3 more people that we are 15 all in all, because my co-founder and me, we are both highly artistic, and we are both like 99% involved in the production.
Right.
So
the
if
business side is. Yeah.
I hate it. So we have one guy who needs to do that stuff. But of course, like talking to publishers but we don't want to lose our ability to actually produce, like Boris and me.
Yeah.
And we see the more people come, the less we can actually do something. My whole Monday and my half Tuesday every week are full with meetings. I can't do anything else. I never sit down even once at my place because I only am in meetings. So this would just increase when the size becomes much bigger.
Right, of course.
So we just want to figure out a way to have a healthy size of a game,
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the development community like in Berlin?
And so we have a really cool bunch of indies where we are like with one foot in and one foot not, but like we are loved there. So because
they still let you hang out even though you were friends with EA. They didn't mind.
Yeah. So yes, no, they are lovely and highly creative, and there are much more and more games that are got what is called seen by the press, a rock paper shotgun, just to mention. I hope you are good with them. Because,
absolutely, yeah.
Okay, because they are amazing for indies. They helped us becoming more visible. Many of the Berlin indies became more visible because of them. They always covered us a bit, and so it's that is a great stuff. When press is doing this kind of things.
We're delighted to have you here as well today. Thank you so much for coming in. Before we let you go, we'd like to ask developers about the games that they're playing. What are you into at the moment? Presumably, if you're traveling across the world, you're holding a Nintendo console at the moment.
So yes, 2 games. I play Luigi.
Yes.
Luigi's Mansion 3. I fell heavily in love with it. It's perfect in my eyes. The animations, the second gameplay, the feeling of the different what is called floors.
Yeah.
And I never played Luigi game or Mario game in a long time. So but Death Stranding.
Oh, really?
I am so in love with Death Stranding. I always think about flying home right now just to go on playing it. It's so interesting that it has such a wide review range.
Divisive, yeah.
But in my eyes, it's like a milestone in gaming. I don't know if you like it.
Oh, no, my review was basically, this will either be your favorite game ever, or it will be the Hideo Kojima game that you like the least. For me, I found it incredibly... I'm really happy I played it.
Yeah.
I don't... It's like... the way I sort of tried to put it together in my head was that it felt like watching if, like, Lars von Trier had made a sequel to Nobby Nobby Boy, where it's like, when I watch Lars von Trier movies, I don't know if everything that he's trying to communicate comes through, but I enjoy the experience of watching them just because they're so interesting and weird and challenging.
Yeah.
And I found parts of Death Stranding unbelievably mundane,
Yeah.
but also that was what they were trying to do. So I found, like, by the time I finished it, I was like, that was one of the most...
You finished it already?
Oh, yeah, because we got it 2 weeks early.
Okay.
So I was like, that's one of the most interesting games I've ever played. I couldn't recommend it to anyone or not recommend it because I just don't know. But that was good enough for me. That was like cool.
What you describe is art.
Right. Yeah.
That is art.
A painting, a sculpture.
You like it or you hate it, or you feel nothing, or you cry in front of a painting. Like, you have all the different reactions. But this is good. This is art. This is how it should be in my eyes.
What is it about it that you like then? Why is it grabbing you?
So for me, it's everything. Like, of course, the graphics are like, what the hell? Like, it's amazing. Like, the feeling he give me when I'm in this world is like, I am really one of those postmans, like, really feeling in solitude, not alone, not lonely, but in solitude, like being okay with it. Like, I'm interested in what all the metaphorical, I love metaphors. So what all the metaphorical meaning is. So it intrigues me, like, to go on. Then it's a strange thing about this multiplayer, or this that playing together, like building this road, where and at some point I felt suddenly like, okay, there are other players. I'm building something together with them. And then I got totally into road building. I don't know if you had that feeling. The BTs, these beach things, like creeping me out.
They're super scary.
Wow!
Every conflict I had with them, they terrified me.
I'm screaming. I'm screaming at home, like scared, but also enjoy. Like, it's like, ah! So it's like this whole weirdness of what is going on, like the strange names. Like John Drake was posting about, like, what is this name? Or does he even know, like, Kojima, what names mean? Like Die Hard Man? What does it mean? Like, I love the strangeness. This is what we need more to be more diverse. So all the stuff, like you said mundane, like the mundane, it's like the normal, too normal, or what you mean with it?
I'm used to being catered to in a video game. I'm used to the video game being like, be entertained, be entertained, be entertained. Whereas this just sits back and goes, no, just walk for 40 minutes. And yeah, it reminds me of, like, the things that I feel like I loved about games like Fallout actually was just like walking. And like being and thinking about things and seeing things and having that, like, I don't know, having a moment for your brain to catch up and just look around and not be bombarded. Actually, it kind of was nice.
So I loved also this the second to second gameplay, if you can call it like this, that you need to take care. There are so many that you don't fall over. It's like such a little thing, but I love it. All these unique ideas. It's just so artistic. It's it's so interesting, so unique and well done. Also, like the crossover with famous actors. Like, I love that always. And Norman Reedus is so sexy. I'm sorry. So you see the whole package. It's weird, it's strange, but it's so amazing with it.
I hadn't ever considered any thematic connections between Sea of Solitude and Death Stranding, but now hearing you talk about it, I'm like, oh yeah, it's a lot of like communication with people and isolation and liquid in a weird way, beaches and rising tides and buildings in liquid.
Wow.
Yeah, all that sort of, that's you've got quite a lot going on there. Water going up and down. And
yes. So I saw some similarities, but I feel like when I say that, I feel like it's Kojima, and you know what I mean. Yeah. But I feel like the metaphors and stuff. I love this kind of games.
Yeah.
So this is why I did maybe kind of a similar thing.
Well, thank you for taking a break from Death Stranding to fly all the way here just to talk to us and do a TED Talk on the way. You know, easy peasy.
Oh yes, a TED Talk.
Yeah. When are you going back?
On the 20th, I fly back.
Okay, so short trip then.
Yeah, my team needs me.
All right, and you need them.
Yes, I miss them so much.
Connie, thank you so much for coming in. Yes. For folks, if you want to play Sea of Solitude, if you haven't already, it's available on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PC through Origin, and you can complete it in... I liked it as a new father as well. I liked it. It was a game that I could play in under 5 hours.
Yes, 4 hours plus minus.
It's amazing how something that takes 4 hours takes years to put together.